Are you feeling dialed in this morning?
Kat, it's me. I'm always dialed in, and it's my duty to make sure you all are just as fired up. Oh yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time to dial in. Welcome back to another episode. We're in the final week of February. I'm Collin O'Callahan.
I'm Ryan Curtin.
And just when you think that there isn't enough football to talk about once the season is over, they just throw everything at us like it's just a deck of cards.
It never ends. It never ends. And I'm happy to talk about it, you know?
I know. NFL Combines this week, franchise tag deadlines, next week. The NFL free agency, it's in like 2 to 3 weeks, which coincides with March Madness, fittingly. But we do have a lot to talk about, so let's just jump into it right away. Let's get this show started. So the franchise tag deadline is March 3rd at 4 o'clock p.m., but 3 players have already been placed under the franchise tag. Falcons tight end Kyle Pitts, Cowboys wide receiver George Pickens, Jets running back Breece Hall. Not official yet with Breece, but if they can't come to an agreement with a long-term deal, then they're either putting him on the franchise tag or transition tag, so they're going to make sure that if he does leave the Jets, then they're not, getting nothing out of it. But let's talk about these 3 moves. What do you think, was the smartest move? Which one are you really sure about that? But what were your thoughts?
I mean, I think the smartest move was getting George Pickens back to the Cowboys. I think having him alongside CeeDee Lamb really opens up the offense, and we saw it this year. Obviously, they couldn't make up for the lack of defense that they had. But no, I mean, George Pickens, obviously Pro Bowler this year, had a great season, even with CeeDee Lamb. Dak's a great quarterback. At least in terms of, getting the ball out and, airing it out. George Pickens is a perfect receiver for that offense. And, considering they're paying CD and Dak as much as they are, it would have been hard to get Pickens back otherwise. So, I don't know how George Pickens feels about being franchise tagged, but I think getting him back, he's getting $29 million, so, he should be fine with that. It's more money than I'll ever see, certainly. So,
right.
It was a good move, I think, and I think it was definitely the right idea to get him back alongside CD.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, the NFL just announced that they're going to set the cap at $301 million, which is flat out absurd, and that's definitely a huge exponential increase compared to last year. But the Cowboys right now have the fewest cap space in the league right now. They're over $58 million over the cap.
Right.
And the biggest reason why is because you're paying Dak Prescott $74 million, CeeDee Lamb $38 million, Tyler Smith's getting owed $27 million, Quentin Williams $21 million, Kenny Clark $21 million, Osa Odighizuwa $20 million, and the other, 8-figure deals or 9-figure deals, you got Deron Bland, Terrence Steele, and Jake Ferguson. And then Malik Hooker is the only other contract that's, less than $10 million, which is around 8.9. So putting the franchise tag under George Pickens, that's putting a lot of stress on, your financial, cap space and your flexibility here. But I feel like, with George Pickens, considering that he was a free agent, this was probably the best thing that you were going to do because you can't give him a long-term deal right away, obviously. You're going to have to shed a lot of pieces, especially on the defensive side, to make sure that you even have the leg room to do that. But I agree with you. I think it was the smart move. Considering the fantastic season that he had last year, being in the top 5 rather, in so many statistical categories, yards after catch, yards, catches, touchdowns, big plays, first downs, you name it. I think it was definitely a huge boost for that side of the ball. Obviously, the defense is a totally different discussion, but I think with Kyle Pitts, he's coming off a pretty strong season himself.
Yeah.
You're finally seeing wow, so this is why the Falcons took him with the 4th overall pick and why he was such a stud to watch in college out of the University of Florida. So I think with the Falcons, they're definitely in a much more precarious situation because they're expected to release Kirk Cousins. We'll definitely talk about that later on in the show. Michael Penix, he's coming off a torn ACL. Defensively, you're still trying to make sure all right, who are really the true cornerstones of that defense? But considering how much they improved last year, you're finally starting to lay a foundation. And then offensively, it's just making sure that, who does Kevin Stefanski really trust to really pick up the bulk of it? And there might be a couple more cuts along the way where it's okay, we want to get younger on that side of the ball. At least with Kyle Pitts, we're at least keeping youth, and we're making sure that we're not going over the edge. And I think
No, I was just going to say, I'm surprised. Yeah, I mean, I like definitely getting him back. I'm just surprised they weren't able to get a long-term deal in. And I guess the Falcons' cap situation, I don't think it's very good over there either, right?
Yeah. I'm surprised that while I looked that up, I'm surprised that the Jets were even considering placing the franchise tag on Breece Hall. Because I remember, like, before the trade deadline, like, they were trying to get a second-round pick or a third-round pick just to make sure that they got some exponential value out of it, and they couldn't get to that. But I think with Breece Hall, like, outside of Garrett Wilson, he's pretty much your best offensive player.
Yeah.
So if you let him go for nothing, then that's definitely something that it's just another it's just another addition to the list of failures that the Jets organization has. But the Falcons right now, they got $10 million right now in cap space right now.
So not great.
So you release Kirk Cousins, you still probably have to pay a huge chunk of his salary, no matter if you release him, pre-June 1st or post-June 1st. They announced that they're going to do it right before free agency. But Jake Matthews, he's 34. He's getting paid $27 million. Chris Lindstrom, obviously one of the highest paid guards in the National Football League. You're paying him $26 million. Jesse Bates is nearing his early 30s, and he's getting paid nearly $25 million. A.J. Terrell's 28. You're paying him $22.5 million. Then you got Darnell Mooney, Drake London, Caleb McGarry. All of them are being paid. Let me actually do the counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 figures. 8-figure deals. So, yeah, the Falcons they're not in the worst situation possible when it comes to their cap space, but when you have a new GM and a new head coach, obviously you're not going to be able to do too much this offseason. Really, you're going to need to make sure that, Raheem Morris got fired after back-to-back 8-win seasons. You better make sure that you exceed that win total to make sure that when you do have that cap space, that players are going to want to go there. That free agents and draft picks, they're going to want to be excited to be in that situation. But all three of these moves are interesting, and hopefully we'll see what happens when it comes to long-term deals. I doubt we're going to see them anytime soon, but at least these teams have a plan in place for now.
Yeah, it's rare to see the Cowboys having a plan during free agency, so it's nice. Yeah. I think they got this one right, though.
They're not. I mean, it was the only move that they could do, to be quite honest with you. Because what are you going to do? Let him walk away in free agency and have someone else throw a boatload of money that you can't do right now because of how way over the cap you are right now? It's not worth it. But who would you want the Chargers to tag out of the list of free agents that they have on their docket right now?
Yeah, I mean, I saw some, because the Chargers have $80 million in cap, which is one of the largest in the league right now. So I was saying, Joe Horwitz doesn't really want to franchise tag anybody, but if you're going to do it, it's going to be Odafe Owe. I think getting him the past season was a really great addition for the Chargers, really boosted that defensive edge, especially after Khalil Mack had that elbow injury, wasn't quite the same after he came back. So having him in there alongside Thule, and even, getting Khalil Mack in, 3 edge rushers on some plays, that really made that defense really hard to stop, the pass rush really hard to stop. And, we saw that in, their playoff loss against the Patriots. We saw that at the end of the season. And I think bringing him back and, keeping those pieces will keep the defense roughly where it was over the last season or so, even without Jesse Minter. I think getting back Odafe Owe, maybe they're not going to quite be at the level they were last year, but certainly it's going to get them close.
And I agree, because that midseason acquisition for him turned out to be a huge boost for that pass rush, because there was a point in time where the Chargers defense, it was starting to dip a little bit in terms of production compared to how great they were the year before. But once they brought in Owe, that solidified the pass rush, and more importantly, it took so much pressure off that secondary.
Yeah.
And I think that defense was able to find their step again. So I agree with that. For the Patriots, I think it's going to be Kayvon Chason, because if you really think about it, Harold Landry led the team in sacks with 9.5, if I'm not mistaken, but from my point of view, I think Kayvon Chason was probably their best pass rusher, just when you think of consistency. Because in the playoffs, Harold Landry wasn't available for most of it. He actually missed the AFC Championship due to that knee injury, and Chason was really the guy that stepped it up and really boosted his production. And he proved that contract year with the Raiders was not just a fluke, that, he just really needed a change of scenery. He really needed to, boost his confidence a bit more. And it's I wouldn't say it's the Sam Darnold or whatever quarterback you want to compare when it comes to pass rushers, but you think about it, he was a first-round pick from the Jaguars, never really carved a role out there. Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker were really the guys that, kind of usurped that production.
Mm-hmm.
And, he finally gets a new change of scenery. He finds a new footing. And he started out as a rotational pass rusher, but once he got more of those snaps that, we were expecting him to get when he started in Duval, then you really started to see, okay, this is totally a different player than what we saw, 4 or 5 years ago. So I think it's going to be Chason, and, I think with the amount of free agents that the Patriots have available right now, there aren't too many key losses. Jalen Hawkins is a guy that they're going to want to bring back. Mm-hmm. They just released Antonio Gibson, but that was because he was coming off a torn ACL, and you saw the rise of Trayvon Henderson and the renaissance of, Ramondre Stevenson. Jack Gibbons is not going to be exactly a huge loss. The same thing with Alex Austin or Verdarian Lowe, but the amount of free agents that they got right now, it's okay, you could probably afford, to lose some of those guys and, try to see what you got in free agency or the draft, because they got quite over $40 million in cap space right now. Mm-hmm. So they don't really have to do too much, but more importantly, because they were in the Super Bowl last year and because of, how they were able to overachieve after just one season with Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf together, yeah, I think there are going to be quite a few players that, might want to step on board and see what they've got.
Yeah.
So.
No, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So,
Right.
I think you just want to keep as many pieces as you can and maybe get a few splashes at, wide receiver.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the NFL Combine now, because that just started yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. That's when players were starting to participate in drills. I think 2 days before that, coaches and GMs, they made the trip to Indianapolis. They spoke to the media. They addressed what their plans are, what they want to do, what they think is going to happen, so forth and so forth. The Bears were definitely in a lot of conversations, revolving compensatory picks. Mm-hmm. Obviously losing Ian Cunningham, Tremaine Edmonds. They granted him permission to request a trade. DJ Moore, they're kind of on the fence. Do we really want to bring him back? Should we really keep him? Which is kind of a shocking development to me. I thought that he would be high priority for them, but that's a different story for another day. What I really want to talk about are the players that are actually working out at these things, or quite possibly not participating. Mm-hmm. So Fernando Mendoza and Jordan Tyson are not expected to participate in drills, but Drew Aller, who's coming off a season-ending ankle injury from Penn State, will participate in whatever workouts that are necessary. But Fernando Mendoza, he was quoted to say, "At the Combine, you're throwing to different receivers. It's a whole different thing, and I want to make sure I give my guys the best chance. I want to throw a pro day with my guys, with my running backs, and be there with the boys." With Jordan Tyson, it's a little bit of a different situation because he's coming off an injury, so you just
Mm-hmm.
don't want to aggravate it and risk, potentially missing time in his rookie season. But I wanted to open this up for discussion. What is your opinion on players saying that, they're not going to work out at the Combine? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? What's your stance on it?
I don't really like it at all. And if you're Fernando Mendoza, I get it. You're probably going to be the first pick regardless whether or not you practice. But I feel honestly, if I'm the Raiders and I see I'm not going to practice,
yeah,
I'm going to be is that really the kind of guy I want on my team? Because it is basically just you're skipping practice because you think you're too good. And I understand what he's saying, but I don't agree with it at all. Because when you're in the NFL, you are going to be throwing to different guys.
Exactly.
You're going to be throwing it to, guys that you've literally never thrown the ball to before. It's going to be not exactly the same, obviously, but it's going to be very similar to what you have at the Combine. And even in terms of risking injury, it's not like they have you out there running, 7-on-7 drills where you're likely to get hurt or get tackled.
Right.
Maybe you'll pull a muscle, but that's the absolute worst thing that you can do, So I really just don't like it. I think it's very cocky. He's going to go first overall most likely, but I think if you're the Raiders, you have to look at that and just kind of be is this really the guy that we want leading our team?
Listen, I'll be on record to say that when it comes to the NFL Combine, I don't put too much stock into it. And the reason why is because of, when you're at the Combine, obviously the tangibles are very important. You want to see how high you could jump, how fast you could run. You want to see, your route running. You want to see how far you could throw the football. That's all well and good. However, when you're not going up against defensive backs and when you're not actually in game simulations to the point where you're trying to give that player the experience of okay, you're going up against press coverage and you're called to run a slant route or a double move or whatever the case may be, that's the moments where you really want to see those players at their very best. You want to see them in those tough situations. When you're playing on wide open fields, you're not exactly given the degree of difficulty to work with. So that's why I don't put too much stock in it, especially when you see like the 40-yard dashes with John Ross, him having the fastest 40-yard dash, only for him to, not have a long and sustainable NFL career. That's the definition. But when it comes to Fernando Mendoza, I don't want to hear you say that I want to make sure I give my guys the best chance, because guess what? When you're in the NFL with the Raiders, if you're, with all intents and purposes, you're most likely going to be drafted there. When you're playing in your first NFL game, you're not going to be throwing to those guys that you were playing with in Indiana. You're going to be throwing to a lot of different guys that you might not have had the most experience with. And obviously, that's what OTAs and training camp is for, to get those reps and to develop that chemistry. But when you see that quote on Front Street, no matter how you may twist it, GMs and coaches and scouts, they're going to be like, okay, well, how much of a team player is this guy?
Yeah.
And I understand you don't want to risk injury, and you don't want to put too much extra strain on your body, or you don't want to you don't want to injure something and then potentially risk aggravating it in May or June or July, whatever the case may be. But there are teams that have spent a lot of money and have traveled a lot of miles just to see who they're going to potentially draft in the next 2 months. And that's what regular season is for. You got the tape, you got the evidence that you need to show what you can do on the game field. Now we really want to know what you're all about in here. And I think when you put a quote out like that, it's not a good look. And I agree with you. I agree with everything that you said. It's just, okay, you might not want to throw, you don't want to participate. All right, is this someone you really want in our locker room? We don't really know.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like you said, it's not like people don't put a lot of weight in this, so it almost makes more sense for Fernando Mendoza to go out there and just sling it around for a couple minutes and not really care, not obviously don't say you don't care, but it's I feel like as long as you show up, and put in the work, I guess that's sort of the opposite of not caring, but at the same time, again, I think not going at all and saying I don't want to throw to guys that I'm not going to throw the ball to.
Yeah.
I think that really sends the wrong message, because you are going to be throwing to guys, like you said, that you've never thrown the ball to. Brock Bowers is going to be your guy. Jack Beck's going to be your guy. Ashton Genty's going to be your guy. You've never thrown the ball to those guys before, but now, I mean, again, assuming he goes to the Raiders, those are going to be your guys.
Yeah, and if you're those 3 players, or those 4 players rather, they're probably going to be saying, well, how excited is he going to be when he's throwing to us in our very first practice or our very first OTAs? Does he even really want to be here? And I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm not saying that he's not going to be grateful for whichever team gives him a chance, but it's just that's what these lines, that's what these quotes can do, and the media has a very good way of twisting it one way or the other. So I'm not saying Fernando Mendoza is was wrong in the moment, but I'm just going to say you better be careful what you say in these types of situations, because someone out there is going to get the wrong idea of it, and nobody wants that, and I'm sure you don't want that, for you to begin your NFL career.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm surprised it's from Mendoza too. He seems like the kind of guy that would give 100% in everything, run into a brick wall for just about anybody.
Exactly, but I mean, who knows? Maybe he'll have time to sleep on it. I don't think he's going to change his mind about it, but when he's in these top 30 visits with all these different teams, because he's not going to only be talking to the Raiders. There are going to be teams that are going to want to see what he's really made of and what they can do to try to pick his brain up a little bit. But we'll see how everything develops there. But speaking of the Raiders, their general manager John Spytek told reporters at the scouting combine in Indianapolis that he expects Maxx Crosby to be with the Raiders this season. Obviously, he's been in trade rumors for what feels like a lifetime now, because the Raiders have just completely wasted one of the most generational players that they've had ever in franchise history. I'm just going to say this. I think he has to say this, because general managers, you don't want to say, oh, yeah, no, we're trading him because we've completely wasted him. They don't want to say that, but we know in the back of their minds that it's probably more and more likely that he's not going to be a Raider. But if he does get traded, where could you see him wind up?
Oh, that's a good question. I didn't think about it that far. Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, wherever they give him the best deal, I saw today that they were looking to give him, if they are going to trade Maxx Crosby, it would probably be, 2 first-rounders and a player or something like that. And that's a lot. I mean, Maxx Crosby, as you mentioned, a very generational talent. But at this point in his career, I don't know if that's necessarily like. That might even be too much for Maxx Crosby. I think.
Maybe.
So I don't know. I mean, he could go. I mean, who's got the most cap space right now?
The Tennessee Titans at
not gonna go
$100
there.
million. He's definitely not going to want to go there.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's...
The Eagles were in conversations. The Patriots. I mean, if you're Skip Bayless, you're like, yeah, get me Maxx Crosby for the Dallas Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Philly, New England. I mean, Dallas is. I feel like that's just a pipe dream. But
no, yeah, he's not
someone
gonna go
that definitely has like the draft flexibility to give up a first-round pick or to give up one of those higher deal picks to make sure that they get one of the best pass rushers in all of football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I mean, I feel like you mentioned, like he's been in trade rumors pretty much his entire career, or at least the last 4 or 5 years, seemingly. And,
yep.
Like it seems like it's the same story. Oh, he's gonna get traded, but then when he comes back, he's like, I love this team, I love these guys. I'm not going anywhere. Like it seems like Maxx Crosby. Obviously it's hard to say like you enjoy being on a team that wins 2 or 3 games and is sort of generationally
exactly
struggling. But I mean, again, like at least from what he's showing us and like the way he's acting, it does seem like Maxx Crosby still wants to be on the team.
It's just you don't want to set him up to fail again. It's like It's like Myles Garrett with the Browns. It's like, okay, I'm going to stay here, but you better make sure that you do enough to make sure that this team is built well enough to make a sustainable playoff run. I'm done with the one and dones. I want to make sure that we're playing for championships and not just for seats or asses in seats, rather.
Yeah.
So I got the top 10 teams with of the teams with the most cap space. Titans are at number 1.
No.
Chargers are at number 3. That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
There's no way that's
we already. Yeah, I mean we're pretty set on edge rushers, especially if you get all the way back.
The Jets are 4.
No, I don't think the Jets.
The Commanders are at 5.
That could be interesting. Yeah.
But he's also. Let me look at Maxx Crosby. I think he's 28. He'll turn 29 in August. So he's still a pretty young player.
Yeah.
Still worthy of giving a Supermax extension or a Supermax contract. The Seahawks are at number 6.
Oh, wow, that would be crazy.
That would be absolutely explosive.
Yeah, I'd love to see that, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. The Cincinnati Bengals, there's no way. They're too cheap.
Yeah, especially, on that side of the ball, I don't think they're going to.
Yeah, sorry, Olivia. Steelers are at number 8.
Maybe. Unless like TJ Watt, that would be pretty cool.
I mean, a Maxx Crosby for TJ Watt kind of flip, but you also don't want to send TJ Watt to, a team that's rebuilding. So
No, I'm saying like those two together on the, on either side.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool to watch.
And then the Rams are at number 9.
Okay.
They could definitely use some, veteranocity on that side of the ball. And then the Patriots are at number 10.
Okay.
Colts are at 11, Cardinals 12, 49ers, Ravens, Broncos, Bucks, and you get the point. I feel like with Maxx Crosby, I wonder where Philadelphia is on this list. They're at 20th, so they're only $2 million in cap space for this season.
Yeah, I mean, they, obviously they can, like, dip into, luxury tax a little bit, but I don't think, I don't see it.
As a Patriots fan, I would love to have Maxx Crosby.
Oh, absolutely.
Which team wouldn't? Because the guy is so explosive. He literally plays through injuries pretty much every single year, whether it's his knee or it's his back or his ankle, whatever the case may be, because he wants to give it his 100%. I remember one year, I forget which year it was. I think it might have been 2 or 3 seasons ago, but they were playing the Chiefs, and he was playing through a very serious ankle sprain, and Antonio Pierce, he took him out of the game, and Maxx Crosby got absolutely livid because of him staying on the sideline. That's the type of guy you want to have in your locker room, someone that's willing to give it his all just to win.
Yeah, and for the Raiders.
Exactly. A team that has only been in the playoffs, once since 2019, which was the year that he was drafted. Yeah. And ever since then, he's had multiple double-digit sack seasons. He's been absolutely near the top of the leaderboard in terms of hits and pressures, yet it's amounted to what?
Yeah, nothing. And, I mean, like I said, if I had to guess, I'd say he's going to stay. That would be my guess. I don't think he's going to get traded unless they give him like a really mind-blowing offer, like the 2 first-rounders and a player.
And you don't want to put Clint Kubiak in his first season as his head coach. You don't want to put him in that situation.
Right.
Maybe towards the trade deadline, those talks will start to build. It's like Giannis with the Milwaukee Bucks. It's like, okay, you know that he still has a lot to prove. He's still one of the top 5 best players in the NBA, but you just don't know how long this relationship can work. Just because it hasn't been the same since they, were on the mountaintop so long ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I'm the Raiders, I just need to you just need to make sure you get the best offer out there, like you said. But they need to wake the hell up and just start over, because they're gonna ruin this guy's career if they keep him around for too long.
Yeah, well, I mean, we just talked about Fernando Mendoza possibly going to the Raiders, and I mean, if that works out, then they got pieces on offense, and with a little bit more help on defense, they could be back in the playoffs.
Absolutely, but Maxx Crosby is not the only one that's in trade rumors right now. Mm-hmm. Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa is also on the block. General manager John Eric Sullivan said everything is on the table, including the possibility of a trade. Now, Tua hasn't requested a trade formally or officially, but I think all of us pretty much know it's a matter of when, not if. Mm-hmm. But where do you see Tua's career winding up? Is it still a starter, or is it just a backup? At least right now.
Yeah, I mean, certainly for right now, I think you kind of have to lean on him as a backup. I mean, unless he goes to the Jets, obviously. Like, the Jets are maybe like the Vikings for half a season just to give J.J. McCarthy a little bit more time. But I don't know. I feel like, obviously, he's still got a big contract for, another year or two?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, Let
me pull it up.
Yeah, I think it's hard to imagine after the year and a half he's had, that he's going to, be a full-time starter again. Like, maybe he'll go somewhere and completely wow us, but I really... It's hard to imagine Tua's career being the same, which is unfortunate, but, you did kind of see it coming after... what year was it? I bet he had the 2 concussions. Was it 2 years ago?
That was 2022.
Oh, okay. So a little further ago.
That was 3 concussions, actually.
Yeah, 3. Yeah, I mean, after that year, people were already saying his career was over. He might not come back, but... Yep. He's been back, and he's had some good games, but he's also had some really not so good games. So
it's a low ceiling and a very high floor when it comes to Tua.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, exactly. I think that, maybe he gets a shot somewhere as a backup.
Right.
But, I mean, with that contract, too, I just don't know who would, take that in. It's a weird dilemma, and I hope nothing but the best for Tua, but I don't really see, long-term him being a starter somewhere.
Exactly. So I got his contract details right here. It becomes void in 2029. So he's
so a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah, so he's getting paid $56 million this year. He's going to be owed $53 in 2027 and then $65 in 2028, which is flat out absurd. But I think with Tua, when it comes to last year, injuries were nowhere the reason why he struggled. He led the league in interceptions. They got off to an abysmal start. I think they were, 3-7 at one point in the season. Mm-hmm. So it was just such a bad wall. I mean, the GM got fired in the middle of the season. People thought Mike McDaniel was going to be the next to go, and eventually he did towards the end of the year. But I feel like with Tua, Minnesota is definitely, if you want to give him a chance to be a starter again, that's probably the most ideal spot for him.
Yeah.
But the Vikings, they just fired their GM. I'm sure you don't want to take on a huge chunk of his salary when you're trying to figure out who your next quarterback is going to be, and you're still trying to establish that side of the ball, because Kevin O'Connell is definitely not the issue in Minnesota right now.
Right.
I mean, you got a coach of the year that knows how to get the best out of his quarterbacks, but with Tua's ridiculous salary, I'm not sure if you really want to take that risk. Who knows? Maybe they can, but I think there's definitely a couple more options out there that you might want to look towards more on that side. But I'm looking at it right here. Let me pull it up.
Yeah. No, and while you're looking, even if you're even if he stays on that team, Quinn Ewers had some pretty good games to end the year. So I mean, it's hard. Even though Tua's had some really good games. I don't know if Quinn Ewers
is starter caliber, really.
Well, I don't know if he's starter caliber, but I don't know, is he more or less starter caliber than Tua? That's sort of the real question, So, Tua's, you mentioned high highs but low lows.
Yeah, I got this piece from CBS Sports right here. So the Vikings obviously are at number 1. Then you got the Arizona Cardinals, who might be moving on from Kyler Murray. Apparently, him and the GM haven't even spoken to each other since the season ended. So
interesting.
That might be a marriage that could be coming to an end right there. Yeah. The Indianapolis Colts, they're trying to get a deal done with Daniel Jones. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that team is probably
I think Daniel Jones will remain the quarterback for the Colts.
Yeah, and then obviously you got the Atlanta Falcons. which is probably just an insurance policy until Michael Penix gets healthy, because you're probably getting rid of Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I was going to say, you need to make sure you get rid of Kirk Cousins first, because you don't want to have two overpaid backups on your team.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I feel like for this season, for next season, it's probably going to be as a backup, because there aren't a lot of good starting positions out there. Maybe Pittsburgh, but
maybe, yeah.
That's a possibility, but you don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. But it's not even the most ideal landing spot, because offensively you don't have a lot of explosion, and defensively it's one of the oldest units in the league. Well, it's the most expensive unit in the league, yet it's doesn't really have a lot of the youth or a lot of the energetic presence besides T.J. Watt.
Yeah, I think it would be very similar to what he has in Miami. Probably even a little worse, just because you don't have Waddle and Hill.
Yeah, I think the best situation for him would just be a backup. Try to learn from a better caliber quarterback. Try to get as much intel and knowledge from an outstanding offensive-minded head coach as you possibly can, someone that is willing to take you under their wing. And then when the time presents itself, when your contract is up or when you're a free agent, then you could choose, the best landing spot. So I feel like that's the only thing he can do, just to make sure his career doesn't go down the drain.
Yeah, no, it's like he'll be fine in life, obviously because of this, but it is almost kind of a curse for his NFL career that he got paid so much when he did. Like, what was it, $55 million a year or something like that you said? 65 in a couple years?
Just right up there with, Trevor Lawrence and Jordan Love, so...
Yeah, no, I mean, it's tough when you're, sort of regressing a little bit, and you also have this big, contract where it's no one really wants to take that in.
Right. But, yeah, Miami is definitely starting over. Obviously, last week they made a ton of cuts, and then with Tua... We'll just see how everything unfolds, because it's a ginormous contract, and if you do trade him, then the team that does get him is not going to want to take on the majority of that salary. And if you do cut him, you're definitely down the drain when it comes to your cap space.
Yeah.
So, but another player that could possibly get traded within the next month or two, wide receiver A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. So last week, we were pretty much saying it might be Boulder Dash if he, went to a different team or if he went to a specific organization. But apparently, Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni said that he can't guarantee that A.J. Brown will be back with the Philadelphia Eagles this season. Okay. That's a little bit jarring.
Well, does that make you excited, Colin? Do you think that there's a chance he's going to go to New England?
You know what's funny? I was actually talking about this with a couple of friends yesterday. And the thing is, if you get A.J. Brown, you're going to have to cut Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
And I think, listen, what's going on off the field, that's a totally different conversation that we don't really need to have right now. But on the field, he had 1,000 yards, was up for a comeback player of the year, which is pretty promising considering that he was coming off a torn ACL. But I'm going to pull up his contract for a second. But it's I remember when they gave him that 3-year contract. If they do cut him, then you're not necessarily taking on a huge chunk of dead cap. If you do cut him, then you're only taking on $8 million for 2026, and then $4 million in 2027. So you're pretty much, considering the cap space that you have right now, it's just like a drop in the bucket.
Small change. Yeah.
So I think with A.J. Brown, it's cautious optimism if he somehow goes to New England, because on one side, you reunite him with Mike Vrabel. Obviously, the two have an amazing relationship. And, he's got a young quarterback that's willing to push the ball down the field. And I'm not saying Jalen Hurts isn't willing to do that, but you could just tell over the years, with the amount of different offensive coordinators that he's had, a different identity, a different approach, different philosophy. At least with Drake May, there's stability and there's consistency.
Yeah.
With the exception of that Super Bowl, obviously.
Yeah.
I think that there was a possibility. I saw this online this morning that there's a possibility that they could pair A.J. Brown and Stephon Diggs together. So who knows if that's going to happen.
That would be a very dramatic receiving room.
So I don't really know if you really want to enter that avenue. But the reason why I say cautious optimism, because obviously when you've seen A.J. Brown over the last few years in Philadelphia, you could just tell that might not be as happy as you would expect.
Yeah.
Which is surprising because he's obviously their best receiver. He's a champion. And just seeing the dynamics between him and Jalen Hurts, it's just, you could just tell it wasn't the same as it was in 2022 when they did get to the Super Bowl in their first year together.
Yeah.
And you just hope to yourself, like, okay, how much of it was actually on Sirianni, but how much of it was on A.J. Brown? Like, how much of it did he precipitate or fluster the issue? You just want to make sure that he wasn't really the problem starter and that he wasn't really the one conjuring up so much drama. So that's where I am right now. I would like for it to happen, but I'm just, it's like the Stephon Diggs situation. You just don't want him to be, like, too much of a distraction.
Yeah, well, no, and I mean, like you sort of said at the end, like, maybe a change of scenery is what he needs. Maybe that's... Right. It is just the frustration with Sirianni, and he's the issue, But it does seem like over the last season and a half, maybe, like, there has been... It is coming to a head here, and, like, it almost... I wouldn't say it's inevitable, but it does almost seem like a matter of time before A.J. Brown ends up on a different team. And it might be the Patriots, it might be somewhere else. It's hard to know, but, yeah, I mean, they were just butting heads too much, and that really got to the locker room, obviously, for the last half of the year, and I think that's what... cost them, a run in the playoffs. Yeah, and one more comment I'll add before we get into the final topic. Mike Vrabel, I think he did say... Crap, I lost my thought. I think he said something to the point where it's like, they're either going to draft a receiver or they're going to trade for one. There aren't really a lot of quality wide receivers out there in free agency. I mean, there's Alec Pierce, but the Colts are probably going to try to keep him. Yeah. Mike Evans, he's... definitely going to consider his options, but, he's in his early 30s, and he has hamstring problems, and you don't really want to... Two big injuries last year. Two big injuries last year. You just don't really want to run the risk of that, despite, the fact that he is a future Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. So my guess is, if they are going to trade for A.J. Brown, it's not going to be worth a first-round pick, obviously. Yeah. It's going to most likely be a third, maybe a second, and that's a big maybe, because A.J. Brown obviously has some wear and tear on his body. But... listen, the Patriots are definitely the most ideal landing spot if he does, want to trade out of Philadelphia. But I think you better make sure that it comes at the right price. Because if you just give A.J. Brown the same deal that you gave Stephon Diggs, then it just makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah, no, and I said it earlier, too, with the franchise tag conversation. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, And, like, I think, yeah, the Patriots will be just fine without A.J. Brown. If he does, it could help in the short term at least. But long term, maybe not so much. So... yeah, we'll see. I'd err on the side of caution if I was New England, but... totally agree. All right, final topic. Baltimore Ravens General Manager Eric DeCosta told reporters at the Combine that he's confident the team will get a contract extension done with Lamar Jackson. I agree with that for sure. Yeah. I don't even think that's even a debate. If they don't, then something has gone terribly wrong. Yeah, this isn't like what it was 4 years ago when he actually did ask a trade out of Baltimore, and, he ended up getting that huge 5-year deal. But... with Lamar Jackson, it's put up or shut up. Because with 2 MVPs and only 1 conference championship appearance and no Super Bowls in that career, you just have to ask yourself, like, okay, how great of a quarterback is Lamar Jackson? So I'm going to kind of start some fire up a little bit. Where would you place Lamar on your list of top quarterbacks? Yeah, this is why I wanted to have this conversation. Let's go. Bit of fire. No, I think... yeah, I mean, you sort of know, like, where I stand based on what team I like. I don't necessarily think, like, Super Bowl appearances or lack thereof should define you as a quarterback. Like, obviously, I think Patrick Mahomes, as much as it hurts to say it as a Chargers fan, he is the best quarterback in the NFL when he's healthy. Like, obviously, right now, maybe not so much. But, like, when he comes back, I'm sure he'll still be, top 2 or 3 at the absolute worst. But again, like, I think it's safe to say, like, easy top 4, you have Mahomes number 1, 2, 3, 4 can be any order, but just sort of... Josh Allen. Yeah, Josh Allen's probably 2. Then I'd probably go with Lamar 3, and then I'd probably put Joe Burrow at 4. I think that's like the clear-cut top 4 for most people, but it seems like you have a different opinion. I'm going to say, listen, Mahomes is number 1, obviously. That's the standard. Even with, the disappointing season last year, it's like, you still know what he's capable of when he's got the right guys around him. Josh Allen, you'd want to put him in. You want to put him as your top. You want to put him at number 2. I think. Listen, he's got to get to a Super Bowl as well. But at least he's been to conference championships before, and he has an MVP. Here's a hot take. I don't have Joe Burrow in my top 5 anymore. Oh, interesting. Don't. Because listen, he did have that big run in 2021. And in 2022, they got to the AFC Championship. And then just 2 years ago, he did lead the league in touchdown passes. But
it's just the continuity has just not been there. And a big reason why is because of the injury history.
Yeah.
And listen, you can't really blame players for getting hurt. Freak accidents happen all the time, whether it's torn ACLs or appendicitis or freaky calf injuries or torn wrist ligaments or even that freaking turf toe that he had to deal with last year.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously that's the case, but it's just, I don't know. When I think about it, wins are not quarterback stats, but you have to take that into consideration and just, Joe Burrow, since that 2021 run, you haven't really seen it a lot from him. And obviously all of it hasn't been his fault, but as the quarterback and as the face of the franchise, you got to take some accountability into that. But I would say Lamar Jackson, I would say he's the third. I'd have to put him at third because, listen, the 2 MVPs you can't discount. I mean, one of the only unanimous MVPs for a quarterback. So, obviously, you got to take that into consideration. But the playoff record is why he's not number 1 or number 2. Because anytime he wins a playoff game, he loses the very next one. Only one conference championship appearance. Hasn't been to a Super Bowl. And for a player to be that generational and to be that skilled, it's unacceptable. And there are no more excuses. And you're at the point where quarterbacks like Drake May or Jaden Daniels, even Sam Darnold and Matthew Stafford, they're rising their way up to depth chart because they're getting the same accolades as you, even better. Drake May has been to a Super Bowl. Jaden Daniels went to a conference championship. Sam Darnold has a ring. Matthew Stafford has an MVP and a Super Bowl. And he pretty much elevated himself back into the top 5 in that conversation. So I would definitely say Lamar Jackson he's still one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. But if there comes another point in time where a freak injury happens or he misses the playoffs or he gets there and comes up short once again, then the next time we have this conversation is not going to be a fun one.
Yeah. Who else do you have in your top 5?
I'd say Matthew Stafford because last year he won the MVP. He already has a Super Bowl. And not only that, when he did get to the Rams, the first year he got there, he proved to be the difference maker that particular team needed. Obviously, they brought in Von Miller. And, Cooper Kupp ended up having, an outstanding season. He won the Triple Crown. Odell Beckham ended up being, a key piece of that team. And they were extremely loaded on both sides of the ball. But if Jared Goff was the quarterback of that team, I don't know. We're probably having a different kind of conversation here. So I would say Matthew Stafford is in there. And then as for the number 5 spot, I have to, really, talk us over as I play it out. Because... Yeah. You thought it could be C.J. Stroud after his rookie year, and that obviously didn't work out.
Not so much.
I wouldn't say anybody else in the AFC South. I wouldn't say Justin Herbert, unfortunately, to your dismay, just because, no playoff wins. Sam Darnold, I'm not really sure. I think he's close. He is definitely close.
Definitely closer, than he was 2 years ago. Certainly.
I wouldn't say Brock Purdy. I wouldn't say Baker Mayfield. I don't think anybody else in the NFC South. Jordan Love, not really. Caleb Williams, it's too early. I don't know. I'd probably say, I think Jalen Hurts, but it's outside the top 5. Okay? Because, listen, he's got a Super Bowl ring, and more importantly, in the 2 Super Bowls that he has played in, he played absolutely phenomenal and extraordinary. And he was pretty much those were the performances that he needed to have to win those games. Now, the first one, they didn't get it done. But the second one, that defense beat the crap out of Patrick Mahomes. But it's Jalen Hurts, it's all right, shut down Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts is that guy that really needed to step up. And he did just that. So I would say Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Matthew Stafford, Jalen Hurts, and then Joe Burrow, and then the rest, we can leave that up for debate. I'm not going to, and no, I didn't put Drake May in the top 5.
I thought you would. I'm impressed that you didn't. I'm going to say, though, I'm not that selfless.
He fell one short. He fell 1 vote short of the MVP. He had an absolutely horrendous game in the Super Bowl. Listen, he still has a long way to go, and he has a chance to get in that conversation, but right now, he's in the top 10, but top 5 still have a long way to go.
Yeah, see, I was going to say, I'm not that humble about my quarterback.
Yeah, let's see.
I think
let's see where you got.
number 5, that being pointed at earth, I want Justin Herbert as my
gosh.
top 5 quarterback. I think, and again, like especially, as the years go on, it's like less and less convincing, certainly. But I think just he's dealt with so much throughout his career, and just watching him play, like he's got so much talent, and what he's done with so little. Like, you make fun of the MVP voter that voted him first overall, but like he was right. And I don't know if I would have given him a first place MVP vote, but like he was absolutely right. What he's done really throughout his whole career, with his rookie year, he had rookie year.
He had Anthony Lynn.
Yeah, and Anthony Lynn, but he wasn't. He didn't start that year. The rest of the team was sort of in like a weird rebuilding state.
Yeah.
Then he had Brandon Staley. The defense wasn't playing great. Once they got Harbaugh, the wide receiver room was still a little bit iffy. Last year, offensive line issues. Like I think this year, and I say this every year too, so take it with a grain of salt. But I think this year's going to be a really good test for him. Like if he can't get it done, assuming the offensive line can stay healthy, assuming that, Mike McDaniel.
It's going to be tough without Bradley Bozeman. I mean, the guy.
Yeah, I know.
Retired.
We forgot to talk about that today.
Oh my God! What a travesty.
Yeah, I know. It's a travesty for defensive lines everywhere. No, but I mean, yeah, if the offensive line can stay healthy, Mike McDaniel, I think he's the right fit for the job. And like, certainly if he can't get it done this year, get a playoff win this year, then he's going to be, going down in my rankings. But like, I don't know. And this is
he a better quarterback than Dak Prescott?
Yes.
What?
Than Dak Prescott.
Dang.
Yes. Oh yeah, he's absolutely better than Dak Prescott. I think Herbert, and it wasn't quite as good this year, but I think Herbert is better at taking care of the football. He's also got better scrambling ability than Dak Prescott. And I think, like, even looking at some deep passes, like, I think, 30, 40, 50 yards or more, I trust Herbert's accuracy more than Dak's.
I'm just going to say this right now. There are not too many quarterbacks that I'm going to take over Dak Prescott right now. There are a slew of quarterbacks in the AFC that I'd rather have over Justin Herbert.
Really?
Without question. And listen, I'm not going to go the Emmanuel Acho train and say that Justin Herbert's a social media quarterback. I'm not going that far. But listen, Herbert was phenomenal in his rookie year with the opportunity that he got. A very freakish opportunity, but nonetheless, he got a shining moment, and he did the best that he could, and he did help his team get to the playoffs a few times. But in those few playoff games, let's just go back. Up 27-0 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They completely choke and they lose 31-30. Obviously, you could blame the defense, but offensively, they were one-dimensional, and they couldn't do anything. The next time you get to the playoffs, you're going up against Houston, the Houston Texans, and you're finally realizing, okay, C.J. Stroud's rookie year is starting to become a fluke, but they have a great defense. Obviously, they won the AFC South by default. We could take advantage of it. And instead of taking the league by storm, 4 interceptions, and they get blown off the field, 32-12?
Yeah.
Something like that. And then the last game against the Patriots, it's a low-scoring defensive grudge match. You're in position to win the game, and you get blown out 16-3. You can blame the offensive line, but 3 points, no touchdowns. You got to take some responsibility into that. And with Dak Prescott, I'm not saying he's like miles above better than Justin Herbert. I think the gap is like very small because obviously the Dallas Cowboys since 1995 have just been the epitome of underachieving. They're the Toronto Maple Leafs of the NFL for crying out loud. But at the same time, like Dak Prescott, there have been a lot of points this year where he's either led the league in touchdown passes, led the league in passing yards. He's had those seasons where he's been the biggest reason why the Dallas Cowboys offense or the organization itself has been, playing in the playoffs or why they've won NFC East titles. You go back to his rookie year when he took over for Tony Romo, they went 13-3. They ended up getting the number 1 seed in the NFC. And then, 2021, nearly winning comeback player of the year. He finished second to Joe Burrow, but he got them back in the playoffs after a absolutely nightmarish 2020 year. And then just last year, obviously they didn't make the playoffs, but he was probably one of the only reasons why that Dallas Cowboys team was even relevant. And then a couple years back, just, him and CeeDee Lamb having that dynamic connection and getting the second seed. Now, obviously, the playoff utility is what the playoff utility is. No one's trying to shortchange that. But at least Dak Prescott has like a bigger sample size than Justin Herbert and with more, volume and credibility to it. So That's what I would say.
I mean, does it really have more credibility, though? I guess he's won, 2 playoff games in his career?
More than Justin Herbert.
It's more than Justin Herbert, but you said bigger sample size. And if you put Dak Prescott on the Chargers team this year, how many games do they win? Do you think they win 11 games if they have Dak Prescott with that offensive line?
Yes.
You really think so?
Because he's done it before. He did it in 2018. He literally did that before. They made that midseason trade for Amari Cooper, and they ended up going on a hot win streak. They won the NFC East, but he was one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league that year. I think he got sacked, 51 times? So he's done it before, and he's capable of doing it. But let me ask you a question. If Justin Herbert was on the Cowboys, do you really think that you're getting more success?
I think a little bit. I don't think it's going to be... I think you give yourself a chance at, the NFC East.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know. I think if you give Herbert a little bit more time, then I think... Because, we saw that in the game against the Cowboys.
You could say that with, any other quarterback in the National Football League. Well, if Cam Ward had more time, or if Drake May had more time, or whoever the case, any young quarterback, Jaden Daniels, he had a freakish injury-riddled season last year. It's like, well, if you just gave him more time and not supply him with a bunch of older guys, then watch out what he could do. But there just comes a point in time where it's like, if you give him every single thing in the world and he still underachieves, then it's like, what can you say then?
Well, you're not giving him everything in the world. He hasn't had everything.
He's had it. Hey, needed a great defense? Boom. Last 2 years in a row, outstanding defenses. You need a number one receiver? Boom. They get Lon McConkey. You get Quentin Johnston. You draft guys like Trey Harris. Running backs? Omarion Hampton. Pretty solid rookie season. Now the offensive line, that'll definitely be a huge point of emphasis. Heck, it's Jim Harbaugh. They'll do everything they can to make sure that it's not a liability. But what happens then? You're just going to point to another area and just use that as an excuse or a scapegoat? At some point in time, you got to say enough is enough.
Well, no, and I will. I think certainly, again, if the offensive line stays healthy and, maybe we draft another wide receiver, these guys keep developing, we keep these defensive pieces, and Herbert still can't get it done, then yeah, I'm definitely going to put more emphasis onto that. But, just watching the games, it's just, I don't know. And again, this is definitely me being certainly at least a little biased as a Chargers fan.
A little?
Yeah, a little bit. But no, it's just watching him play. I don't know. I feel just there are so few quarterbacks that can do what he does. But at the same time, in the playoffs, it just kind of goes away. So I do kind of have to take all that with a grain of salt.
All right. We'll end that conversation for now. But thank you all so much for watching another episode of Dialed In. Make sure you like and subscribe for additional content. Check out the 303 Sports Network. We'll be back with another episode. And, enjoy the rest of your February. We'll see you in March.
Yep. See you guys.
See you guys. Love y'all. All right. That's another one of the books.
Nice.
Oh, boy. Jeez, I'm tired. Justin Herbert better than Dak. My gosh.
Than Dak Prescott.
Yeah. What a freaking... That is so blasphemous.
There's no way you think that he's not better than Dak Prescott.
I absolutely don't.